Today we talk about absolute value functions. This is a refresher back, as we mentioned at the end of chapter 1, that we would be coming back to these. So the first thing I want to do is recognize what that parent function looks like. So as you can see here, we have the f of x equals the absolute value of x. And remembering that when we talk about f of x, we always want to, when we pick our x values, we're going to use -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. And if you recall, remember, absolute value is always positive, so my y values are 2, 1, 0, 1, 2. So if we go ahead and graph this, we have 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 2, -1, 1, and 2, 2, -2, 2. So we get our function that looks like this. That is a V. Please remember that it is a V and not parabola shaped because it does keep getting wider at the same rate. The second thing I want to do before we start getting into more practice problems to refresh our memory from last chapter, I want to take a look and refresh our memory about our summary of transformations. Now this stuff, a lot of this you've gotten. This would be a great time to flash back to your notes from 1.9 day 2 if you took the notes by hand and add to it. Now we talked about how it's at the end and it's outside when it's a vertical shift. It affects the y because it's the vertical axis it's affecting. So if you want to go up, we're adding, down, we're subtracting. It's exactly as you see it. Horizontal shifts, on the other hand, remember to be careful, think opposite and inside. It's inside because it affects the x, or the horizontal axis, and it's opposite what you would think. So if you see minus a value, it's really going to move to the right and be plus in the rule. And if it is left, it's going to look addition, but it's really going to be minus in the rule. Reflections, these are the ones that most of you tended to forget. These are the ones that are going to have the negative value. And just remember, if the negative is inside the parentheses, that is going to be your horizontal reflection, which goes across the y-axis, but it affects the x because it is horizontal and makes it the opposite. Because remember, with stretches and compressions, we don't multiply by a negative multiplier. They're all positive. Now, if it's a vertical reflection, it's going to be across the x-axis, and that negative sign will be out in front, and it will affect the y. Stretches and compressions were the ones that tended to have most of you struggling with the most, so let's take a look at those. Remember, if it's out in front, it's going to affect y because it's going to be a vertical stretch or compression by a multiplier. If it is bigger than 1, it is going to be a stretch. If it is smaller than 1, it's going to, or a fraction, it's going to be a compression. Now remember that horizontal is a little bit different. It is inside the function, and it affects x by a 1 over b multiplier, which means you have to be careful and flip it. So remember, if it's on the inside and it says 1/3, it is actually going to affect the x by a factor of 3. Whereas, which is after that flip, and if it is, say, 3x on the inside, that would be your compression factor of 1/3. So remember, it's going to be that opposite. So if it helps you to make a note, if it's 1/3 x, that is going to be a stretch, and it's going to be times 3. Whereas if it is 3x, this is going to be a horizontal compression, and it's going to be times a factor of 1/3. Because of this 1 over b, it's going to be that reciprocal. So now our next step is going to be to use this to get ourselves in a position to refresh our memories and get stronger at doing these transformations.